Welcome to a special Patreon episode of Salsido Paranormal. I'm your host, James Salsido, and tonight I'm beginning a new series of Patreon shows. I'm going to call them Story Time in honor of a friend of the show that um, mentioned that term, and I think it fits with these shows. And it's going to be Story Time, and it'll be the Red Lake Entity, which is the novel I'll be reading. Thank you all for being here for the live streams, and or for those of you that are listening to this recording after it comes out. Thank you for being Patreon supporters, and I really appreciate that. It does help the show, um, and because there are expenses in making these shows, so really appreciate that. So this came about because I have some friends that enjoyed my books, which is amazing, and wanted audiobook versions of them. And I looked into the possibilities there, the options, and nothing really felt right, and or nothing else was really affordable for me as of now. And so the best thing I could come up with was this. I'm going to read these my novels, the two that I have out so far, and then once I finish the third one, as far as the paranormal related third one, I'll read that as well. And I'm going to read them in little half hour to hour long episodes here, and they'll go out to the Patreon feed. And there will be mistakes. I will probably find mistakes in the writing and or in the typing of the books. I've had a friend kind of caution me on that today, that no one is perfect in their editing or writing. So, and also I'm just going to say there is not going to be any editing of these shows as far as the audio goes. So I will make mistakes. I will stumble over things. And so it is not going to sound like a regular audiobook that is edited, that that has all the little stops and starts taken out, and that has music or sound effects or whatever else. That's not, none of that is going to be present in this. This is just going to be me reading my book as well as I can, and going from there. And whatever you enjoy, I'm grateful for that. Whatever you don't enjoy, I apologize. I do not claim to be a great writer or a great storyteller in any way. I enjoy the process of the writing. I have never read my writing out loud before, so this is a first for me. So, in case you haven't noticed yet, I am nervous. And that is probably why I'm taking so long with this introduction here. But it's important to let everyone know what type of recordings these will be, and what to expect from them going forward. Because I have no idea how many of these there will be to finish those books. So they will just, I know I will be recording them once every week on a Monday night. So that is the plan. Also, this first episode of this series will come out on the main podcast feed, the regular free podcast feed. But then all future recordings will be only on the Patreon feed. So, and again, I don't like to even have a Patreon feed, but again, doing these shows takes time and takes money, and so support is never expected, but always appreciated to help sort of keep that cost of the show down to a minimum. So, anyway, let me get to the file here. As for how I'm going to read the book, I will, of course, say whenever there's a chapter, and then also whenever there's a section. I don't have chapter titles as far as words. I just have chapter 1, chapter 2, and so on. And so I'll be saying that for each chapter, and then I'll sort of say each section number as well, so you all know uh, when I'm starting and stopping a section. So uh, so yeah, thank you, Shane, and take care. I see you in the chat there. So yeah, that's the plan. So let me get to this file here, and we'll see how this goes. So again, anyway, I'm finding myself wanting to repeat myself and saying, hope you enjoy. Sorry if you don't. And that goes for any and all of this that I'm doing here. Let's see here. Wow. Seems like the print is not as big as I want it to be. So let me change that real quick. I just noticed that now. Live shows are always fun. So I'm just going to change the font size. And that should help. Okay, that does help. All right, here we go. Chapter 1. The mansion came into view through the van's square sliding door window, and Nancy looked at the first floors with mild interest. Here we are, the home of the Commander General William Stryker, the man who inspired the members of Stryker's hand to kill my parents for their views, Nancy thought. Are you okay? Nancy turned her head and then shook it slightly to push some of her face. Sure, why do you ask? The man in the seat next to her looked down at her, his blonde hair brushing the top of the van as he did so, and Nancy wondered for the 1000th time if Mark Kelly might not be a descendant as she stared at his large, round, featureless face. It's just, well, you know how closely we examine new members, right? Nancy Young nodded. Don't worry, I'll be fine. I was only 2 when it happened, so I barely remember it anyway. As for the similarities between my history and that of the family that used to live here, Nancy shrugged. Bad stuff happens to good people every day, unfortunately. That's a big part of what fuels paranormal activity. And there's obviously activity going on here. The banks wouldn't just let this place sit here, not with the money-making potential it has. Something is stopping them from renovating the place. We're here to find out what that something is. That's all. The van slid to a stop outside the large wooden doors of the mansion, and Mark nodded. Okay, ready? Ready. The 2 friends quickly got out of the van, so no one would wonder what was taking so long. There's already enough gossip going on about us as it is, Nancy thought. Totally untrue, of course. Well, mostly untrue. Nancy sighed as she heard Mark's feet hit the ground seconds before hers did. And then she went around to the back of the van to help unload the team's gear cases. 2. This is your first time inside, I take it? Tyler, one of the 2 founders of the team, asked as everyone set the gear down on a large patterned rug that covered the vast expanse of the entrance. Yes, I've seen most of the rooms in here on net pictures and videos, but it's never quite the same as being in a place. I'm surprised the council hasn't turned this into a museum, Mark said as he and the others straightened up. I mean, this is where the world was run from for centuries. Even Stryker lived here before he was taken out. That's one of the few things our school history files got right. And that was only a century ago. Not very long, considering we've no clear idea anymore when mankind settled this planet. Wow, can't read. Anyway. He bent slightly and began opening the gear case in front of him. I believe we can stick to our usual setup system, but I don't want anyone going anywhere alone. This place is running on standby, so the emergency lights are all we can turn on with the light switches right now. And you all know how unreliable those can be. So you three will have to go from room to room together. It's going to take longer than usual, but that's why we got here early. Make sure each room has at least 2 pods, and then go back and use whatever we have left to cover the larger rooms. I want everything we have let's see here. I want everything we have in the basement. Tomorrow night, we'll see if we can cover the first and second floors. Nancy nodded as she followed Mark and Myra, who had obviously been in the mansion before, through the entry room toward the rear of the house. Could you imagine cleaning a place like this? Myra asked, her long blonde hair moving slightly as she took in the antique dining room table and chairs. I'd rather not, Nancy said. I have a hard enough time keeping my 1-bedroom apartment clean, and I don't have anyone living with me. I know, Tyler and I. Myra stopped. Mark stopped soon after, and Nancy had to stumble a step back to avoid running into the large backpack that rested against the wide plane of Mark's back. Did anyone feel any air movement? Myra asked, looking back over her shoulder at Mark and Nancy. Both shook their heads. Interesting. The basement door just opened on its own. Let me go first, just in case, Mark said, almost whispering. Yeah, and then if there's someone there, we can watch you tumble down the stairs as you try to run after them. Let's keep moving. Nancy and Mark laughed, and then they followed the other co-founder down the stairs, keeping as quiet as possible. 3. This is a lot more finished than my basement, Myra said, as soon as she had both feet on the basement floor. It was made of the same tiles that filled the kitchen they had walked through to get in the basement to the basement stairs. Rugs covered most of the floor, and various chairs and tables of different shapes and sizes filled most of the large room. If you'll stay right there, Nancy, I'll take the pods out of that pack. And so we can get back upstairs. I think that's a mistake. I think Mark had the pack anyway. Live recording, always fun. It says here, let me find my spot. It says, what are you picking up on? She asked as she did as directed. A moment later, she could feel the pack on her back shifting slightly. I don't know. Some kind of, well, I guess it's a vortex. Although I've never sensed one as big as this before. Nancy looked around as Myra and Mark got to work, tossing a metal sphere into the air over near each corner of the ceiling. The sphere sank for a brief second, as always, and then began to hover in place. The light above the camera lens came on, and Nancy wondered if they'd catch anything. Then she saw the doors across from where the stairs led out. Shouldn't we put a pod in each of these rooms? She pointed as Mark turned toward the plain panel doors. No, they're just the utility rooms, packed with pipes and the power system. Anyway. Oh. Tyler, do you have the basement yet? It's just one large room. Looks like it was used either for storage or gatherings of one kind or another. Or maybe both. Yeah, I've got you all on audio and video. Good. We'll see you in a minute. Okay. Myra pulled the small, circular walkie-talkie away from her ear, pressed a button, and put it in her pocket. Let's go. I don't want to be here right when that thing finishes manifesting. Better to keep an eye on this place from a distance, I think. And before the other half of the team could respond, she headed up the steep stairs. Mark and Nancy looked at each other and then followed. There are records within the team files of dozens of these things. Why is Myra so freaked out by this one? Nancy thought. She tried to think of a logical explanation, but couldn't. I don't know, but I agree with Myra on one thing. I don't like it down there. Nancy? Yeah. Are you okay? Sure, now that we're out of there. You know I don't have a sensitive atom in me, but I'm with the boss lady. I don't like it down there. I hear you. Is it bad, Nancy, or just strong? I don't know. Ask Myra when we catch up to her. I think this is 3. Anyway, next section. So, what's going on? What did you feel down there? Nancy and Mark came into the entrance room just as Tyler gently took Myra by the shoulders, and they glanced at each other in surprise. I'm 99% sure they love each other, but I've never seen them make physical contact while out in the field. Nancy pushed the thought away, not liking the implication. She's really afraid. That came with it. It's a voice, but it's bigger than any I've... sorry, not voice. It's a vortex, but it's bigger than any I've sensed before. I wouldn't be surprised if the first thing to come through showed up on the visible spectrum, looking as solid as we are. Tyler dropped his hands and looked back over his wife's shoulder at the other half of the team. Although Nancy was sure he was barely seeing them. I won't go back down there alone. I know we have a job to do, so I'll go with you and the others. But I'm not doing any solo work tonight. Okay. We have the entire pack of scanners in the van, don't we, Nancy? Yes. We'll check out the second floor tonight and let the pods keep track of the basement for us. If anything shows up, at least we'll be able to leave in a hurry if we have to. I think I messed up there too. Anyway. Nancy nodded and headed for the front door. Mark watched, and the Nortons stood silent, as if waiting for something. Come on, Mark, Nancy said, as she pulled the front door open. I could use your help. Mark frowned, but then shrugged and followed Nancy outside. On the main monitor, in the center of the table the team had set up, a shadow rose from the floor and pressed itself against the stairwell wall, blending in with the darkness that surrounded it. 4. Let's hurry. If anything is going to happen, I want to see it as it happens, hopefully in person. You're that sure something will happen? Mark asked as he opened one of the van's back doors and Nancy grabbed the other. You've been on the team longer than I have. What do you think? Okay. They moved a couple of spare equipment cases around until they found the one they were looking for, and Mark grabbed the handle as Nancy backed away and prepared to shut the doors as soon as he was out. Mark sighed. I think this might be the biggest case we've ever worked on, regardless of the history of the place. The King's Castle is legendary for its hauntings, and we may even meet some of them in person. But I've never heard of a vortex here. Have you? Nancy thought back to all of the stories she had read on the net and the few she had heard as a child growing up in the world capital. No. Then we better be careful. I didn't feel anything, but I've never seen Myra Norton act like this on a case before. Then let's get back in there. Nancy slammed the doors of the van shut, and sprinted down the sidewalk toward the front door, opening it for Mark before he had even reached the steps of the front porch. 5. We've got something, a shadow. It came from the middle third of the room, and then it shot over toward the wall and disappeared. Nancy closed the front door behind Mark and rushed over to where Tyler and Myra were watching a short video clip on their personal laptop. But a light caught her eye, and she turned to face the main monitor. She drew in a sharp breath and then forced herself to relax. We've got something going on right now, and it's right where that shadow figure appeared. Mark set the case on the floor and walked to where the others were gathered. It looks like the outline of a short woman, or maybe a teenage girl. The light expanded and faded in places, revealing a girl with a black dress shoes, a white dress, and black hair that rose and fell as if a wind was busy playing with it. Oh my gosh, she looks alive, Myra whispered. She's not fading either. Mark focused on the figure in the middle of the screen, and she's moving. The girl turned her head this way and that, looking around the room, as if she knew it but didn't recognize it at the same time. Myra, Nancy, get down there, Tyler said, but go slow. We don't want to scare her. Okay, we're on our way. Nancy looked at Myra, and she relaxed as she noted the lack of fear in the co-leader's voice and face, although it was hard to keep her attention on the older woman with the amazing apparition on their main monitor. Be careful. We will, Nancy called over her shoulder as the two women left the entrance hall. They headed for the stairs and went down slowly. Hello? Is anyone down there? Myra asked. Silence from the basement. My friend and I are coming down to say hi, okay? Nancy asked. Again, nothing but silence came from the dark room ahead of them. They crept down and moved and around the dimly lit stairwell, stopping only when the darkness stretched out before their unadjusted eyes. Can you tell us your name? Myra asked. Hope. The voice was that of a normal teenage girl, Nancy thought, and yet there was something unusual about it, something old. She shivered and then tried to relax. Whoever she is, I don't want to offend her. Considering the fact that she's a spirit of some kind, she looks remarkably well. Your hunt is over. Call the press. Have them come right away. The sooner the world learns the truth, the better. Myra and Nancy looked at each other, frowning. I will be the proof you and others like you have been searching for. Then, once you've had your 15 minutes of fame, you can take me to the council. I must speak with them. I only hope they are not as inept as they used to be when my father was in power. You're aware, aren't you? Myra stared at the figure in the shadows, the light that surrounded it fading slowly. You know what you are, what we are, and where we are. Please hurry. I must speak with the council tonight. It will take days for them to process what I have to tell them, if they are able to at all. But if we delay too long. A tear fell from each of the girl's sparkling blue eyes. Everyone on the planet is in danger. Even people like me. Come with us then, Nancy said, unable to believe what she had heard or what she was saying. And we'll see what we can do. The girl looked into Nancy's eyes, and she shivered again before she could stop herself. It's like looking into a pair of giant raindrops. They're so clear. I can almost see my own blue eyes reflected in them. What is she doing to me? Hope turned her eyes on Myra. Okay. Nancy stumbled back against the wall as the girl came toward them. Nancy, are you okay? Yeah, of course, this is what we've... Nancy found her footing again and looked over at Myra. This is what we've always wanted, right? I don't know about that, but, well, yeah, I guess I do. She looked back at the girl, who was now within arm's reach. Don't you dare, Myra. Don't you even think about it. But it was hard for Myra not to, especially as the three of them walked up the stairs to the ground floor. Nancy took the lead. Myra held back until Hope had walked around her to follow the youngest member of the team, and she brought up the rear. Don't stare, Myra. It's not polite. Oh my, can this really be happening? The ghost girl stopped as they came to the top of the stairs, and then went on through the dining room, sticking as close to Nancy as she could. I don't blame her. I may be sensitive, but Nancy is the most empathic person I've ever met who isn't a sensitive, at least not as far as I can tell. Tyler, Mark, this is Hope. Tyler stood with his phone in his hand, and Myra realized they had heard the whole strange conversation through the audio-video pods that had been placed in the corners of the room. Hope nodded, and then her eyes fixed on Tyler. You heard, didn't you? Yes, ma'am, Tyler looked from the girl in the dress to the phone in his hand, and then back at the girl again. How are you doing this? I've never seen a spirit look so lifelike. It's called technology, silly, Hope said, and giggled, putting her hands over her mouth in embarrassment. as she did so. It was then that Myra noticed the chain around the girl's neck and the crystal that rested against her throat. She's taking energy from around her somehow, Nancy said. Probably through that crystal. Sir, can you call Capital Newsnet? I promise you won't have to do much of the talking. My name is Tyler, and this is Mark. Tyler motioned toward the other man and nearly dropped his phone, catching hold of it at the last second. Okay, Tyler, it's nice to meet you. It's nice to meet all of you. Now, do you want to make the call? Or do you want me to? I'll do it. If you'll excuse us. Myra, can you join me outside? Oh, okay. The couple went out onto the front porch, letting the front door slam shut behind them. Hope sighed. Do either of you have a phone I can use? I think those two are going to... The sound of a hover engine came from the driveway, making Nancy and Mark jump. Hope laughed. I was afraid of that. Nancy, can I use your phone? Nancy stood where she was for another few seconds, and then jumped as a hand touched her arm. It was cold, but there was no doubting its existence. It was the hand of a young girl. I'm sorry if I've shocked you all. I didn't mean to. I wouldn't be here if I had a choice, but anyway, you do have a phone on you, right, Nancy? Nancy reached into her pants pocket with a hand that felt as cold as the one resting on the bare skin of her other arm, and then pulled out her phone. It seemed to jump in her hand as she did so, and a moment later, Hope's hand gently picked up the device out of the air. Thanks, Nancy. Hope's long, dark hair swung as she headed back into the mansion's main dining room. I'll give it right back, okay? I promise. Oh, okay. That was when Nancy fainted. Wow, words are hard. Barely aware of the strong arms that caught her as Mark's own paralysis broke, and the spirit of a young woman started talking into her phone. 6. I may have to label these from now on. Anyway. They don't believe me. Blast it, I was afraid of this. Hope came back into the room and sat on one of the overstuffed armchairs that lined the walls, looking down at the intricate patterns of lines and colors that made up the expensive rug covering most of the room's wooden floor. Nancy woke up just as she was placed back on her feet, just in time to see Hope approach with something in her hands. Here you go. I was hoping I could just have the media meet here, but I should have known they wouldn't believe me unless I provided some pretty secret info about how things work. And even I don't know much about that. She laughed as Nancy reached out and took her phone back. When she looked down at the screen, she saw the backlight switch off and felt the device powering down. She looked back up to see Hope frowning. The young girl sighed. Sorry about that. I tried not to take any energy from it, but it was kind of hard not to. That's okay. I'll charge it when I get home. Hope, are you serious about all this? Going public with who and what you are, and then talking with the World Council? Well, yeah, Hope said, sitting down in one of the folding chairs the team had brought. I mean, that's why I came here. I'm not supposed to be here, you know. She laughed. Of course you do. You're a ghost hunter. Mark smiled, barely aware he was doing it. Okay, I have a plan, but I need something from you first. Can you do anything to show that you're not what you appear to be? Hope frowned, and then she smiled. You mean like something from a horror movie? Yeah, I guess so, Mark said, sitting down as well, mostly to avoid falling down. Just as long as it doesn't, you know, hurt anyone. Gosh, no, I don't want to do anything like that. Okay, hang on, let me think. Hope looked over at an end table, situated between two of the armchairs, near the entrance to the dining room. As Mark and Nancy watched, the lamp lifted up into the air several inches. Then, just as slowly as it had risen into the air, it came down. Nancy noticed that the lamp remained level with the table for the entire time it was in the air. Okay, that's a start. Can you disappear and then show up somewhere else? Or are you stuck in your current form while you're here? Nancy asked. Oh, sure, I can do that. Go to the front door, Nancy. Be ready to open it when I knock. You mean you can leave the... Nancy jumped to her feet as hope seemed to fade before her eyes. A moment later, a knock came at the front door. Nancy walked to it and swung it open to reveal the young girl standing on the front porch. You can read thoughts too, can't you? Nancy asked. Yes, but I try not to. It's not right, or very smart, to peek in places where I don't belong. It has saved me from being eaten a couple of times, though, so that's one good thing about it. Nancy shook her head as Hope walked back into the house. Never mind, I don't want to know. Mark walked out of the room as Nancy closed the front door, his phone next to his ear, talking softly. If he's calling the Newsnet again, he's probably going to get the same response I got. Nancy couldn't think of anything to say, so she was glad when Mark came back into the room, putting his phone back into his pocket. My brother will be here in 20 minutes. Can you do all of that again when he gets here? Sure. Why? Because he's the head of the Arts and Entertainment Division of Capital Newsnet. A knock came at the door, and Nancy creaked it open. She's real, isn't she? Myra and Tyler Norton stood on the front porch, their eyes focused on a point just over Nancy's shoulder. Yes, she is. Can we come in? Tyler asked. Of course, you're the bosses, remember? Myra laughed, and the team reunited in the middle of the entrance room, taking turns looking at each other and at the girl that had materialized into the basement of a secure investigation site as Mark told the team leaders about the call he had made and the things Hope had shown them. It looks like we're all in for a long night, Nancy said, looking at her wristwatch and frowning at the number. What do you mean? Hope asked. You'll see, Mark said. I hope you're up to this. If you fade away before Mike gets here, that's funny. I choose these names randomly, just so everyone knows. He'll pick on me about it for the rest of my life. Don't worry, I'll be here. You'll have to charge all of your gear when you get it home, though. And then every piece of the team's gear powered down, their collective energies drained away. And I think that's where I'm going to stop for today. We're already 40 minutes in, and that's the end of that first chapter. So that was that. So yeah, this was interesting. I am finding mistakes, and those will be fixed, and a new edition of the book will be put out at some point. So you all are kind of hearing a sort of a second rough draft of the same book that will have things fixed in it later on when it's re-released. Thank you all for being here and for being kind and not being respectful. Of course, I knew you would be, but still, I was very nervous. Still, I'm nervous, but not quite as nervous. So we'll do this again next Monday. Like I said, I'll record either one or two of the experiences shows first, and then we'll do this. And thank you. And so also going forward, if anyone has any comments or questions about what I'm reading, you're welcome to put them in the chat of the recording room, the stage, as you're going, and I'll respond to them after I'm done with whatever I'm reading for the night, and we can talk about things from there. Thank you. I'm glad that you all liked it, because like I said, never done this before. So let me find the spot where I stopped the recording. Okay, found it. Thank you all for being here, and I will talk to you all next time on Salsido Paranormal. Take care.